In a previous video, I discussed how wrestling is losing its soul, its magic, which poses the question, is there anyone out there in this grim, trend-driven, capitalist-centric wrestling landscape that is keeping the magic alive? Well, you've seen the title of this video, so for the next 20-something minutes, welcome to the Toni Storm Appreciation Corner.
It is for mature audiences only, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it too.
Jesus Christ, Luther!
I am not going to do the story of Toni Storm a disservice by trying to recount it beat by beat. Instead, I'd implore you to check out Drop Mick Wrestling's awesome compilation covering her entire story, including the Mariah May feud. It is absolutely worth the watch and will have you feeling every single emotion under the sun, so that will be linked below in the description. But to briefly summarize, after a string of close call title match losses, Toni Storm began to lose her identity, her self-worth without the championship.
Am I just not a star anymore?
No, of course.
Am I just not talented like I was? Have I lost it?
No, of course you have.
What is it, Toni? What is it? Am I not enough for you or something?
The result was a meltdown.
Do I have it? Or am I just lucky? When every match, every minute, every pay-per-view was just a roll of the dice to see if it'll all be taken away. That's what you don't know, because you can't know, so you won't know!
Okay, but you're not even old.
Oh, yes. I'm timeless.
An identity crisis which led to her descent into a lipstick smearing, spotlight stealing, champagne sipping, black and white bombshell that feels like if you shook an original film reel of Sunset Boulevard and somebody fell out. On the surface, it's camp, it's theatrical, it's funny, and maybe even at times a little cringe. Timeless Toni Storm is a lot of things, but at the top of the list, she is exactly what wrestling desperately needed. In a way, Toni Storm is wrestling's first brush with absurdism. The idea that identity, fame, purpose, and the very act of telling stories are all meaningless loops that we perform in. So who cares about logic and reason? And in just that alone, it gets at something that I truly love about wrestling, is that at the end of the day, yes, it is a business, but also it's art. And I do want to take it back into the context of the history of wrestling, because professional wrestling really began to take off in the 80s in what I feel like is its era of romanticism, which describes a period of time where art was defined by grandeur and embellishment. Characters like Hulk Hogan being depicted as America's favorite son, and Andre the Giant's Goliath stature help illustrate this golden era's emphasis on fable over realism, which then transitions into the Attitude and Ruthless Aggression eras, which emphasized emulating the real world, taking on this grunge, cynical attitude of the mid to late 90s politics.
I did not sleep with that young intern. As a matter of fact, I was at all night.
And also having fun with the wave of reality shows that took over television, where romanticism emphasized the battle of good versus evil and the building of tradition. Modernism is the breaking of the rules and the death of the traditional hero. However, on June 25, 2007, wrestling was changed forever.
Well, the wrestling world in shock today. Former champion Chris Benoit found dead in his Atlanta home along with his wife and young son. Police now treating the discovery as a double murder-suicide.
In the wake of the Benoit tragedy, wrestling never got to process or reckon with its own excesses, to ask what parts of the Attitude Era were worth saving and what needed to die. Instead, it was sanitized overnight and turned into a PG product, forced to start over before it could self-reflect. Although understandable given the circumstances, this creative pivot led to a lot of scrutiny and eventually a rebellion from within wrestling itself, which then brings us to where we are today in what I would describe as wrestling's long-awaited response to the Attitude and Ruthless Aggression eras. A meta-modern look at wrestling. As the name suggests, today's wrestling has been defined by its hyper-awareness of itself as a product.
I'm the greatest to ever do it. Sports Illustrated says, I am the greatest to ever do it. And it's not just me saying I'm the greatest to ever do it. Sports Illustrated says I'm the greatest to ever do it. As the single greatest female wrestler of all time. And it's not just me saying it. Other people say it. Sports Illustrated, an American publication.
storylines, characters, and social media angles are designed for streaming numbers, merchandise sales, and cross-platform engagement. Almost every storyline is a reference to its past. Audience participation has never been more influential to the product, whether it be in the entrances, the character work, or the storylines themselves. And speaking of the audience, they no longer root for the good guy for goodness' sake. They now simply root for people they like. Hell, at times they're not even rooting for the person as much as appreciating an aspect of the character. For example, the WWE crowd singing along to Seth Rollins' music before aptly booing him for being a heel. Everyone here for the show is aware that that's what all this is, a show. But what I believe Toni Storm represents is the future of wrestling, a future that leans further into wrestling's absurdity. To further elaborate, absurdism in art is about confronting the meaninglessness of existence and reality, that the performance of life will go on anyway, so why adhere to any rules? Oftentimes it's depicted as the world conforming to the inner mind of the characters or the story. I've seen in media like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Lobster, or BoJack Horseman, as opposed to something like Matt Reeves' The Batman, whose primary objective was to conform the concept and imagery of Batman to the real world. Absurdism trusts and at times challenges the audience to stick with its heightened performances, its bending of logic, and existential loops while still bringing home fundamentally human stories about how to cope with heartbreak, societal expectations that define human relationships, self-identity, and the absurdity in our everyday life. If metamodernism is about sincerity and irony coexisting, absurdism is what happens when both collapse, when sincerity and irony stop mattering, and all that's left is the performance. I know I'm throwing a lot at you at the moment, so again, let's bring it back to wrestling. See, in wrestling, absurdism could translate to a performer acknowledging that everything, the promos, the costumes, the storylines, is artificial, yet they find themselves committing to it harder than anyone else. That is Toni Storm. She is the idea that the show must go on even when the shows stop making sense, because more often than not, whether on purpose or by happenstance, wrestling can make no sense at all. Like, if I throw someone towards the ropes, why does the wrestler proceed to bounce against the ropes when they could simply just stop? Just little things like that, you know? But hey, those things are what we love about wrestling. And that absurdism is exactly what the timeless Toni Storm character is not only aware of, but bends to her will. The black and white camera, the over-the-top transatlantic accent, the mannerisms that feel so theatrical. It was also weird and endearing. The crowd was loving it. Toni was putting in some of the best work in her career, and most notably, she was breathing new life into professional wrestling. Enter Mariah May, the wide-eyed prodigy who watched, worshipped, and eventually imitated Toni's madness, posing the question, is Toni Storm's newfound success replicable? Is all you need to become an AEW champion simply acting like a walking, talking Roger Rabbit character? Well, for much of their time together, that seems to be reaffirmed as Mariah May proceeds to blossom under Toni's bosoms, which I say partly as a joke, but also to reference this imagery we get again and again. This repeated use of imagery is a trope that is commonly found, yet not exclusively limited to absurdist art. It provides an anchor to what exactly the story is. In this case, is regarding identity and toxic love. However, once Mariah has milked Toni for all she's worth in her eyes, en route to winning the Owen Hart Championship and cementing an opportunity to challenge her mentor for the AEW Championship, Mariah turned.
But oh my God! What the hell?
And the way it was played by both performers was perfect. Mariah taking gleeful satisfaction, finally being able to reveal her grand master plan, and Toni overcome with sorrow at the pain in her body, but more importantly, her soul. The blood pours from her face as much as from her heart.
You said you loved me! Well, I love you too! They say you should find what you love and let it kill you. Well, it all in. It's gonna be the romance of a bloody lifetime!
Mariah May stole Toni's heart, her soul, and her title, which then led to the moment that this shit got even more absurd. Following her loss, Storm took a brief hiatus, returning to AEW under a different persona. Gone was the accent, the black and white camera effect, the beautiful dresses, the timeless theatricality, everything. The initial reaction was disappointment. See, because whether you're talking about the totally legitimate dentist Isaac Yankem turning into the Undertaker's undead brother from hell, or a quiet ring technician becoming a bald, beer-drinking, middle-finger flipping Texas rattlesnake, abrupt gimmick changes that save or ruin careers is ingrained into wrestling's DNA. However, we just weren't ready to say goodbye to the timeless Toni Storm character yet, and a detail I personally love is how they didn't just make it any other gimmick. They added a little dose of nostalgia by making it her first gimmick. The rockstar Toni Time persona that she had used when debuting on NXT UK. But little did we know, that would become its very own plot point.
I never thought that I would get to say this, but Toni Storm is officially all elite!
Didn't we know she was all elite?
Can you explain where you've been?
I'm from Gold Coast, Australia, and growing up, I loved 3 things: wrestling, rock music, and the grind. Just grinding it out on the indies any chance I got. And now it's led me here to AEW.
What? Okay, but what about your history with AEW?
I've seen every show since the start. Can't believe I've made it here today.
Toni, now hang on just a second. You come on now. You've got to.
Oh, come on yourself. You're a Toni, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a Toni.
Yeah.
You know what that means? It's Toni time, yeah!
That's right. From Toni's perspective, she had finally been plucked out of the indies for her debut on one of the biggest wrestling promotions. This understandably led to a lot of confusion from the characters on screen and the fans watching it, especially as online segments depicted Toni Storm in interviews and behind-the-scenes segments as a young and bright-eyed rookie looking to make an impression. At best, this was Toni having fun, and at worst, another identity crisis for Toni. Whereas her transition to this timeless character was amusing, this one felt a little sad. But all was revealed a few months later as at AEW Collision, when coming face to face with the person who she had taken the title from, Mariah May proceeded to tear down Toni Storm.
When I think about you, I feel nothing. And in the hearts of every one of these fans, you are nothing. You are a joke. You are a meme. They laugh at you and then they forget about you, just like I always knew they would.
Toni Storm responds by exclaiming how much of a fan Toni is, even throwing Mariah's first words back at her. We have a reversal of the pose we've seen time and time again before the beatdown. But it's what follows that is, to me, the climactic moment of this entire storyline.
Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
What makes you think that I've forgotten?
Oh my God.
Every iconic character in wrestling has had one definitive moment where everything they represent is finally cemented and declared for the world. Whether it's Steve Austin's 316 promo after King of the Ring, Hangman explaining what cowboy shit is before Full Gear, or Roman Reigns' I'm Tired promo. But oftentimes these promos are some version of Learn to Love It. However, in Toni Storm's grand declaration, she details that the gimmick change, the amnesia, the fangirl behavior was all a performance because Toni Storm's most authentic self is one that gives herself completely, her mind, her body, and soul, to the performance of wrestling. Because beneath all the champagne and theatrics is a kernel that speaks to something painfully human. It's about fear. The fear of becoming irrelevant in an industry that rewards constant reinvention. The fear that the spotlight might move on and never come back. And that terror of being left behind by the industry. It's something that's been lived before. See, decades ago, another woman stared at the gaze of the very same abyss and is someone I want to introduce to you. Meet Gloria Swanson. Swanson was Hollywood's original megastar. In the silent era, her face was cinema. But when sound arrived, the industry that she helped build moved on without her. She tried to adapt, tried to reinvent, but the machine had already decided who belonged in the new world and who didn't. Then came Sunset Boulevard, her greatest triumph and her greatest curse.
I am big. It's the pictures that got small.
Playing Norma Desmond, an actress trapped in the ruins of her own fame, Gloria blurred the line between the character and her real-life struggles. It was absurd, it was tragic, and it was so damn perfect. She poured every wound, every humiliation, every ounce of longing into that performance, and Hollywood applauded, then quietly turned away again. But here's the thing, Gloria never stopped performing. She carried herself like the cameras were always rolling. There are stories of Gloria performing the famous monologue from Sunset Boulevard for her friends and family as time went on, because for someone like her, and for someone like Toni Storm, the act of performance is ingrained into their DNA. It's their gift to the world.
You see, this is my life. It always will be. There's nothing else. Just us. And the cameras. And those wonderful people out there in the dark. All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
The difference is that Toni Storm gets to do what Gloria never could. Exist and even thrive in a time of the entertainment industry that, while still far from perfect, makes room for women like her. Women who are theatrical, powerful, unashamedly sexual, and maybe even a little bit mad. What Toni Storm is doing is vindicating the ambition that Gloria had, giving that endless and unabashed devotion to the craft a second life in a space that's finally learning how to love those who cannot be contained. But what lightened the load of that loneliness was a love that blossomed before twisting into something that broke her down to her bare bones. But what emerged from this was something so bloody inspirational.
Each scar, every drop of blood, I will feel forever. But now, it's my moment in the sun. Mariah May, you may be the woman from hell, but you came from my womb, and I will shove you back up there and spit you out, for I am timeless, timeless, timeless Toni Storm, and I'm gonna rip your tits off!
What the speech represents is her shedding all of her previous baggage, overcoming her demons and insecurity, and finally stepping into her most confident self. That is what makes this moment so damn powerful to me. And the rest is history. History continuing to be written to this day. When laid out in a compilation, again shout out to Dropkick Wrestling, you really get to appreciate all the subtle details that make wrestling such a beautiful medium, an absurd medium. The fact that there's so much showmanship in a medium that ends with two people fighting. The wacky character dynamics, the inevitability of turning on your friends. How you can be a character one week and a completely different character the next week just because creative said so. The fact that wrestling really can be anything.
Most 13-year-old girls aren't dreaming of being a pro wrestler. What was it about this industry, this art form that captured your imagination?
I haven't the faintest idea, Ariel. I really have no idea why I'm so into this.
You have no idea? The showmanship,
No idea.
the athleticism.
I can't remember. It's just a deep feeling I have inside of me. It's deep inside. It's spiritual.
Now with all this analysis and reflection, some may ask, what if I don't want to do all this character analysis? I don't want to have to understand wrestling. I just want to experience it. I don't want it to feel so fake. Well, look, I agree partly, and to that, I say this. Wrestling will always be wrestling. It'll always come down to the bell ringing and the ref counting to 3, which brings me all the way back to how we started this video. When done right, wrestling is a spiritual experience. It's magical. It's truly the only word I can think of to describe how a medium centered around people fighting has space for so much stuff. And that's because when looking at wrestling on a macro level, it is quite possibly the greatest variety show known to man. Think about the best wrestling pay-per-views that were good from top to bottom, like say WrestleMania 17, for example. Each match provided something different. The colossal rematch between Titans, the entertaining TLC car crash, the triple threat hardcore match that went all throughout the arena, and even a little bit of sports entertainment. What I'm hoping for is to broaden the spectrum that wrestling encompasses even more, whether in scope, genre, or in performers. Why can't wrestling be cynical commentary on the state of our world before becoming a wholesome moment between brothers, followed by an existential musical number about why we live? Why not continue to allow performers to take archetypes like the lone cowboy, the prodigal son, and the 1930s starlet and expand them into actual characters that we can attach ourselves onto? And it's not like what Toni's doing is entirely foreign to wrestling's DNA. Whether it's Bray Wyatt, Danhausen, Orange Cassidy, Broken Matt Hardy, the goddamn Undertaker, wrestling has always been absurd, which brings me to what I believe needs to be the future of wrestling: innovation. See, despite its rich history, professional wrestling is still quite young when compared to the overall history of art, especially when you think about how, for the longest time, wrestling was only defined by the mainstream through the lens of one man, one very, very sick and senile man. And in that time, we have seen the conventions of wrestling thoroughly explored, subverted, and respected. But it's my opinion that mainstream wrestling could benefit from pushing the boundaries of how wrestling can be inspired by mediums like prestige television and cinema, comic books, music, you name it, whether in presentation, story, or character. That wrestling could benefit from incorporating writers, fresh voices that understand and love wrestling, but dare to push it beyond what we know. And the bits of that we've already seen have been highlights, whether it's the Bloodline story inspired by gangster movies like Goodfellas and The Godfather.
It's funny. It's funny. I'm funny to you, like a tribal clown.
Hey, Oos, I think you got this all wrong.
Yeah, man, just hold up, Oos. I think, no, he's a wise man. He knows what he said.
Or John Moxley using the UFC as inspiration.
Do you draw more inspiration from MMA these days than you kind of do from pro wrestling in terms of building your matches?
What I get from it more so than anything is storytelling. I'm not talking about like, oh, somebody broke into somebody's house and threw their belt in the river. Or
Yeah.
Storytelling is like striker versus grappler, veteran versus rookie.
Yeah.
Simple stuff, and see how those stories play out.
Or Kenny Omega basing much of his presentation from anime, manga, and video game anti-heroes. I guess what I'm saying is that I think it's time for wrestling to get weird. And no, not that kind of weird, Jesus. The kind of weird that reeks of originality, not regurgitation, that feels endless in representation, scope, and imagination. As someone who wasn't born into the wrestling fandom, has taken nothing but absolute joy and intrigue in catching up on the history of wrestling and tuning in every week, that is what's so beautiful about wrestling, and that is where its magic lies. Because through a true artist like Toni Storm, we see how wrestling can be about nothing, yet simultaneously tackle existential topics of authenticity, self-destruction, and self-worth. It can be silly and absurd television, yet touch on the very core of what makes us human. It can be fake, but also so damn real. And I truly feel like we're just scratching the surface of everything wrestling can be. That it can be unique, absurd, or even, trying to think of the word. Yeah, that one works. Hey guys, Chesko here, and I want to thank you from the heart of my bottom for making it this far into the video. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. It would help us a lot more than you think. Plus, we got a special announcement dropping soon. Until next time, take care, y'all.